For anodized colors, we have red, violet, titanium gray, gray, gold, silver. For spray coated, we have yellow. Oh god. Oh god. I was gonna go 1, 2, 3. Oh my god, I just realized. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to flip you guys off. Today we're building the Techbear 65. So this was actually sent out to me by Win Studio. I built the Techbear TKL a long time ago, and now this is the Techbear 65. This will be live June 26th to July 10th. Let's look at the box. Discord channel, QQ community. Here, right here. Oh, oh. This is the international group buy, but the local one has already ran. But here's the case. Nice, like, two-toned, right? Whoa. Oh! So I have what looks like to be the Anno Red, but there's Anno Red, Anno Violet, Titanium Gray, Gray Gold, Silver. So you have 5 Anno colors. And then for spray coated, you have yellow, gray, and pink. So a total of 8 colors. For plates, you have copper, FR4, alu, PC. And then for the weight, you have 3 options. You have silver water ripple, gold water ripple, or black water ripple. The mounting or the case assembly or disassembly is called self-expanding locking buckle. So it kind of looks like ball catch, but it's more like a click. So that's closed, right? Case is on. And then you can just press. Case is open. Interesting. Looks like starting price is going to be $225. It looks like it's also going to be an in-stock drop because it says shipping time is going to be 2 to 3 weeks. So you can see that the bezels, at least from like the top and the sides, are same-ish, except you can see like accent pieces. So for example, like this golden accent, it doesn't like go all the way down. It's almost like a ribbon fold right here. So that's really cool. So this is not your traditional blocker. They've decided to go for these like pieces right here, these like accent pieces. The top piece, just looking at it, is already a lot more going on than most boards that we see. So you got this neat blocker that incorporates this like almost fold and like the gold accent that matches the USB side accent. It looks like you can see the bottom case whenever you look on the top. So you can see like this part is the bottom case, this part is the bottom case. So this is an instance where the bottom goes over the top. And part of that is the design of how you open the board. So imagine like ball catch, but now you have these 2 buckle mechanisms right here. So it's almost like a click. I'm trying to think of like what mechanism also uses this, but it's like you push to close, you push to open. There's only 2 of them. There's not like all on the top. In terms of like case security, I guess we'll have to see. You just put it here. You gotta make sure you align it correctly, and then you can just click it. So here's a side profile. So right off the bat, we can see a bunch of different components. So first of all, we see the top piece. We see the quote unquote middle or bottom piece right here. You see one accent piece right here, a separate accent piece, and then you see the weight that kind of protrudes out. And then you can also see like another like middle accent weight, and then finally this like bottom piece. So you can see a lot from the side. It almost looks like building blocks. It looks like this ledge right here, or this wedge, is connected to this part. And then watch, so if I were to click it, you see it'll go down and then it'll come up, right? So let's close. It's open. Here's the back. Whoa! So this is the gold ripple weight. There's 3 weight options and they're all gonna be this like ripple effect. There's a lot going on here. So you essentially have 2 main pieces with like 2 accent pieces. So what I mean by that is like you have this gold ripple weight, and then you have this like accent middle weight right here. But then within like the ripple weight, you can see another little piece right here. And then at the bottom, you can see this like also gold weight right here. This matches this, and then this piece matches this piece. So you kind of have this like asymmetry going on, right? So this is all for the feet. So the feet is all along the weight, and then you have the 2 feet right here. It's almost like chaotic, but I mean, if you like this aesthetic, I think it's pretty cool. Look at the weight up close. You see those? Whoa. I think this weight so far is the coolest thing about this board. Not boring from the top, the bottom, or the side so far. Definitely a lot to look at. Here is, whoa, that's really neat. So this is the USB port side, and then similar to what we saw on the back with this like straight, slant, straight. And then this is also asymmetrical, like it has a shape, but it's not quite centered. I don't know if that will bother people, but there is like a cutout for the USB port side. There's just a bunch of things going on, right? So this is a completely separate piece from the rest of it. So you have this piece, this piece, this piece. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like 6 different pieces so far when it comes to accent pieces. 7 if you want to count this one. Centered USB port. It's not quite even. This triangle is a little bit more than this side, but if you look at these edges right here, they are like reflected, just using like the different weights. And then here you can see the top piece. So it seems like this bottom piece, which is connected to this middle piece, gives it the angle, and then this weight also contributes to that. And then here's the front lip. Whoa! So you almost have like a pseudo like pen rail action going on here. It's not a pen rail. You can't put anything here, but basically there's a groove that has been machined out. This piece and this piece are connected, but this top piece is separate. So far, really intricate piece design. So top piece is very small, but then here is like the mechanisms. This is for the hatch mechanism, these two right here. There's already gaskets incorporated right here. And then if you look at the edges of the case, they have this hard plastic. I'm guessing it's to help basically fill in any like case gap. These are the mounting points. You have these unique croissant shaped ones, and then you also have these like ones that gaskets are already incorporated. This is for the accent weight on the front. It almost looks like you can remove it, but I think it might be screwed in. So if it were to like press against your case, it's gonna be a soft sound. Oh, that's cool. So I didn't even notice this, but you see this cut right here? That's actually for like an LED, I'm guessing, because you have this like PC or silicon diffuser right here. So that means there's going to be light that comes through this part right here. It's so subtle. I didn't even notice it. They have the branding finally right here, Techbear Studio, and this weight is actually this one right here. So it's all connected. They have milled out these parts. Here we can see is pogo connector or pogo pin. This is the mechanism for the hatch, and then this is the USB side. This weight right here, you have the 2 screws, and then for like this piece right here, you'd have like these screws, right? Looks like this little cubby right here is gonna be for like the LED. So it does use VIA, that's nice. It does have hot swap and solder. Keyboard is compatible with PCB mounted, plate mounted style, so that's good to know. So you have the bottom mount, which is what this part would be for right here. You can see the bottom mount has like these little nipples or these little stands or posts for the bottom mount. And then you could do gasket mount, which I'm assuming is going to be for like these like holes right here. They're saying these are buttons. So that's why it has this piece. So that's why they've covered up these parts. So when you press it, it doesn't make the metallic clink. They've basically removed 2 keys in order to give you 3 keys, so an additional key. So they've changed the blocker into a more like functional yet stylish way to incorporate into the board. It does have wireless and whatnot. This is the first part we've removed. There is a 3 right here. It's 4 screws, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So the big weight takes 4 screws, and then this little accent weight takes 2 screws. Looks like they've made this like little cubby for the pogo pin connector. They have these like little silicone feet that they've put into the back right here, and I'm guessing that's for like the metal to metal contact between the weights to prevent like resonance. Here you can see where the battery compartment is. Looks like there is an LED strip right here too. Looks like the keyboard will light up from not only the top but also on the back, right? Holy, but you got a lot of things going on right here. So first of all, the pogo pin is connected via ribbon cable to the main like daughter board. And then this daughter board piece also is where the battery be connected and also where the LED strip on the back would be. I'm excited. I want to plug this in and see what it looks like. While I said like these are for like to reduce like metal to metal contact, I actually think their functioning point is more like anchors too. So it's like functional anchors, right? You can see the LED strip right there. They have these little pieces right here, and this is smooth right here. And this will kind of help you like align it, right? Or help keep it in place, like hook it in place. You can see it's almost like a hook or a wedge to really make sure that it's not just the two pieces right here keeping your case. There's also like a hook. So that's what like these little holes on the bottom case are for, right? So this is the plate. So I have the PC plate and I also have the copper plate. No flux cuts. So it's supposedly supposed to support plate mount and PCB mount stabs. These little hooks, those are going to be for like the gasket. So you see the 4 on top and then you see 3 on the bottom. And then you have these like bottom mount tabs, right? So 4 on the top, 3 on the bottom as well. Different mounting points for whatever mount you decide to go with. And then this little cutout is for the accent keys. And then it's just gonna be the same thing for the copper plate. Nothing too crazy. You only get 1 bottom row PCB. So looks like not only can you plate mount stab, but you can also PCB mount the 4 on the top, the 3 on the bottom. No flux cuts in the PCB. It is 1.6. Looks like you can do stepped or regular caps lock. There is no indicator from what I see, but I'm hoping that this indicator right here or this light strip will be the indicator. It's interesting because this one, it looks like you can have different bottom row layouts, but this plate doesn't quite support that. It looks like you can do ONC ISO. You can split the backspace if you would like. And then looking at the back, whoa, don't know what these like white tabs are for. No physical reset button, but you do have this is for, I'm guessing, the ribbon cable to connect these keys and the LED, and then there's the pogo pin right there. You know how like some people like during Christmas when they go into department stores, they're like, ugh, consumerism, capitalism, ugh, it's all so fake, ugh, disgusting. I love when there's Christmas decorations, there's lights, there's fake snow, Mariah Carey is singing in the background, you know, it's like, I feel happy. I'm just like, let's go. talk about it. Let's taco about it. Tacos. Tacos sound good right now. Anyways, sorry. This is the TB-65F. It seems like it's going to be an in-stock drop, but it will go live June 26th to July 10th. We did only build with one plate today. We did PC plate, but you can get copper, FR4, alu, PC. Here you have the 3 buttons. Mine don't work because I don't have the piece, but you have the 3 buttons on the blocker. And then right here is actually a LED strip that I would show you guys, but like I said, I'm missing a part. You can put the long feet here, or you can just leave it like that and you can see the LED shine through because there's a whole entire LED strip that you can see right here. So I do think this is one of the cooler things about this board is all the different accent pieces and the RGB strips. In terms of mounting, there's 4 mounting styles, okay? So you have gasket bean, which is going to be PCB. You have spring capsule, which is going to be plate. You have silicone cover, which is PCB, and then the last one is going to be bottom mount, which is going to be plate as well. There's a mechanism right here. So imagine like ball catch, except instead of like having to like pry it open, this is just like a press. So you just press it open. It's just a buckling mechanism right here that you would press to lock, press to open. This acts as a cushion, so you don't have to worry about this part touching the case and resonating. And then the rest of these are for just to make sure that there's no wiggle and it stays in place. You know, whenever you have certain ball catch keyboards, I'd recommend not picking it up from the top. If your ball catch mechanism is loose, it'll just drop down, right? But they've made all the walls on the bottom piece or the middle piece, right? So you will never be picking it up from the top piece. Like, it's so small, you shouldn't be picking it up from the top piece. So you don't really have to worry about that. Picking it up from the side like this is perfectly safe. Same with like picking it up from the side. So that is something that I thought was very smart. This is so cool. So the way that they've made this weight protrude out, it makes it so you can see the RGB strip even though it's underneath. Because you see how it reflects off of this bottom weight? Because the RGB is shining through underneath here, but because this weight protrudes slightly out, it makes it so that you can see it from the top. I do think the 4 mounting styles is excessive, but if you're someone who likes to experiment with that, it's pretty nice to have. The reason I say it's excessive is because like the bottom mount, you have to put the little transverse bridges, and each of these bridge takes 3 screws and there are 7 tabs. So it'd be 7 times 3. Okay, so there's just a lot of freaking screws because you have the plate screw that's keeping the bridge onto the plate, and then the 2 screws on the bridge, that's what's keeping the bridge on the case. I don't know if there was like a better way for them to incorporate that, but the bottom mount, like this sucker is not moving. That being said, if you are going to use the bottom screw, what I would actually recommend doing, so what you can do is you can put the bridge and put all the plate screws on and not the side screws, and then put it on and then screw all the plate ones on. But what I would recommend is I would recommend screwing the bridges on for the top and then just like sliding the plate in and then installing the rest. The reason you have these bridges is because you have tabs on the PCB and on the plate. And in order to separate the two, because the bottom mount and the silicone sleeve one, they have the same mounting points. So what you do to separate that is you add this bridge. So this bridge basically creates this like gap for you to then use the plate mounts versus like the PCB mount, which would be lower. So the silicone sleeves would go on the PCB, which would go lower, whereas like the bottom mount goes on the plate. So you have to raise that up so that the 2 mounting tabs don't interfere. You can either do the middle screws for all of them and it will keep the bridges in place. But what I would recommend doing is doing something like, you see how all these bridges are installed? There is an orientation whenever you're building this. These tabs need to be sticking out, and then you see this like circular part, it needs to be inside the case. And then you see how this creates like that gap to basically help you distinguish which mounting point to use. So what I would recommend is installing the 4 up here and then taking like the 3 you see right here and installing just this middle part. And then what you would do is you would slide it in like this, and then you can then set it down like this, and then screw all the screws in. That's what I would do, but you don't have to build that way. As you can see, like the bridges are being held in place by this middle screw. But orientation for that does indeed matter. Another building tip I'd recommend is whenever you're building the spring capsule, so you have 3 parts to it, okay? You have the spring mechanism, and it does have like a top and bottom. Here is the spring mechanism. So this is a thicker part, and then this is a thinner part, and as you can see, it goes like up and down. And then if you look at the 2 gaskets, you have this one, which is kind of like a top hat, and you have this one, which kind of looks like a dumbbell. I would recommend putting the dumbbell onto the plate first, and then taking the spring mechanism, putting the top hat onto it like this, and then actually aligning it into the holes right here. So it's going to be the 4 on the top and then 3 on the bottom. Here you would just make sure it aligns. Make sure it fits in straight. Put in the spring gasket on the bottom like that, because then that keeps it in place. Because if you were to do it beforehand, it would be a little hard to align, and it's much easier to align from the gaskets on the top. So put the spring capsule into the top hat, put it onto the bottom like this, just to make sure it's like properly aligned, and then put the dumbbells onto the plate. So it's going to be using these like bigger tabs on the plate. And the reason why you don't want to like assemble it like this with both the gaskets on is because it's going to be hard to like put it into this tab. So it's easier when this is like flexible, it has nothing in it. It's easier for you to just like whoop, slide it on. Whereas if you had this spring capsule, especially for like the PC plate, you could risk breaking the tabs. I do think the anchors that they've put on many of these pieces is very smart and does help. And then from here, it's going to be much easier. So you just want to go straight from the top. It's much easier to like fit these in. The other ones are pretty self-explanatory. Another thing that they mentioned but wasn't consistent from what I noticed is that they said that the plates support plate and PCB mount, but that's not true, at least not with TX. When I tried to use the PCB mount, these holes weren't big enough. Also, they have a hot swap and solder. However, the plate doesn't support it. Like I was forced into the 6.25U spacebar. The PCB has options, but the plate doesn't support it. So another thing would be, I wanted to do split backspace because the PCB offers it. But if you look here, I can't do it. So that was something that was like inconsistent. I don't know if that's just because we have the prototypes. Whenever you're putting the case back in, always make sure you put the bottom in like this to hook it, and then you can hook it back in. The plate mount stabilizers only support 6.25 and full backspace. If you want 7U or split backspace, they will provide the file. So the PCB will support it, but if you want it, you gotta get your own plate, unfortunately. Okay, so if you guys have a Zoom 65E3, I'd say this is like a cousin of that, but I would say this one is more well polished. I say more well polished because I like the aesthetics. I think it's cleaner in that sense, right? I'm comparing it to that because it has all the different like multiple mounting styles, which is very common with like Zoom boards. It's like they always offer you like a bunch of different mounting styles, and then this one does the same. You normally have like 1 or 2, sometimes 3, but for Zoom boards they have like 4 to 6 sometimes, right? So this one has 4. This one does a cool job like incorporating both the plate and the PCB. I think this blocker and the way they incorporated like the RGB, the LEDs, really cool. This small design choice of like, you know, making this weight go a little bit and stick out, like the reflection of the like underglow right here makes it so that you can see the top. And I think that's a really cool design thing. I wish I could see what this part looks like, and I wish I could tell you guys how these buttons work, but you can remap them in VIA. I just don't have this part, unfortunately. But what they've done is they've taken this blocker, made it into 3 keys instead of the 2 keys, and it also looks really cool. I think the whole thing about this board is that it looks really cool. I think bottom mount is a little excessive with all the screws. So I personally would never do the bottom mount. Another thing to kind of nitpick is the PCB has like compatibility, but I guess for their own sake, the plate forces you into 6.25 and a full backspace. So while it supports 7U and it supports split backspace on the PCB, you won't get that on the plate. Swapping between all the mounting styles is not going to be as easy and as effortless as, you know, some might wish for it to be. And also, there are a lot of people who don't like ball catch, and this is something similar, not quite the same, but there are people who like screws keeping their case together, which makes sense. It's like more secure, right? But this does make it easy to open the case if you need. I will say that swapping between the mountings is not as like effortless as like it is like removing the case, right? Another thing is like some people might not like how this is not symmetrical. I would argue that it's not symmetrical here. If you look here, it's also not symmetrical. So they're just following that like same motif. So you see like it's actually aligned. And so I think to just keep the design language the same, they made this. So if this bothers you that this is not aligned, I think that is like a very minor thing. I do like all the small like Easter eggs. So for example, like this. So you can put feet here, but if you don't want to put feet here, they've actually made it so that you can see the lights. There's just a lot of like empty space that they didn't fill up, but it looks cool. So if you like this, the aesthetics I think is very, very neat. This reminds me of an architect where he just takes like blocks and puts on top of other blocks. So it's not like just a square, it's like a square with like other squares sticking out. It kind of reminds me of that. This is a very unique design language, but I think there's a lot of cool things about it. I honestly think this is more well polished than some of the boards I've built. I do like this board. It's not as easy to assemble or disassemble the mountings, but that's just me being picky. There are a few things that you want to be aware of when you're building it. So if you're watching this VOD, hopefully the tips and tricks help you out. But otherwise, that's the build. I did like this board. I thought it was pretty good, at least for like the price point and everything that it has to offer. I think biggest thing is that it just looks really cool. I like the design of the board. But yeah, that's the board, that's the build. Thank you WinStudio for letting me build it. Thank you guys all for watching. Bye YouTube. Okay, thanks, bye.